Well met, Savage Pathfinders and howdy wildcards. Thank you. Another fantastic Kickstarter is off and running and funded and well on its way to glory and fame. So, congratulations, Michael and Daryl, guys.
Well, congratulations, Michael. I'm just here as a fan. This is Mike's baby.
Thanks.
Yeah, but in recent days, Daryl's got to look at the baby and say that it's ugly and we need to fix those things and brush it out. It's fantastic,
beautiful baby.
So this is quite the design challenge, sir. I mean, Galarian is a rich and wonderful world, but the fact that 3.5 and Pathfinder are fundamentally different systems in Savage Worlds has opened up lots of new and interesting ways for you to have to convert them. So. Thank you for doing the work, man. I know it's well appreciated in our community that we can now play in Galarian in our favorite role-playing system. But why don't we start with what's the difference between the Savage Worlds fantasy stuff that we've been releasing recently, the Fantasy Companion, and then the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds stuff.
And before we get into that specifically, I did want to say, around the office, I say Michael and Sean, who does Savage Rift, have the hardest jobs in Pinnacle, because they've got to not only be true to the Savage World system and game philosophy, but also they're bringing in these other entirely different philosophies at times, and translating those adventures and those specific story beats and things to something that feels like both together. Takes a ton of skill. It's very impressive work. So
thank you.
Yeah, and that's enough accolades. From here on out, it's
now I'll be mean, right?
Right? Let's get into it.
Y'all buttered up.
So is the Fantasy Companion needed for this? What's the deal with Kickstarter, with Pathfinder for Savage Worlds? There are actual folks who are just joining this adventure with us who missed out on the first Kickstarter. So give some background for us, Mr. Barbeau.
So the question of is it needed? The answer is obviously no, right? The Fantasy Companion is a standalone product that can function in and of its own. You can use it with Suede. But that being said, there are a lot of things you can use from it in the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. One of my favorite combinations actually is there is an edge in Pathfinder for Savage Worlds in the new book that lets the particularly tough half-orcs be able to ace when attacking inanimate objects. And there is an edge in the Fantasy Companion in which you can get an extra die when you're trying to break inanimate objects. And so basically you can make a character whose concept is making doors and walls obsolete, which is glorious in its own right.
I kind of need this in my life, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little higher on the power level. Everybody kind of has seen over the past year, right? The ancestries all are 4 points rather than 2 points. You start with a free class edge or a background edge of your choice, and that's worked really well even with just the backgrounds. In my home game, I have a buddy who wanted to play a Harrower, and rather than going for a class edge, he took the Huckster from Deadlands, and so he uses that. And when he got to season, he took a Harrower, and it's really awesome. He's got a really thematic character. But with that said, it's 4 versus 2, and it's a free edge. You're able to kind of lower the power level if need be, and you can kind of compare it to the Fantasy Companion for abilities and such. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with pulling the iconic effects, abilities, ancestries, all of that from Galarian. We've had plenty of meetings where we'll sit down and spitball and talk about how, oh, this looks really cool and we should have it do this and this now. And we get in this side tangent, and I have to kind of sneak in and go, guys, don't want to be the dream crusher. That's not how it works for Pathfinder. Right. And so we got to pull back, and that gets put in a little shelf for use with something else, which is fantastic, right? Because it's the team spitballing and working together. But we do have to fit within their world, which I've been playing for over a decade now. So I'm all in on it. But yeah, that's kind of the difference, and still the capability to use both of them together.
And that's why it can be difficult, like explaining the differentiation between like the fantasy companion and Pathfinder, because it's like, okay, really what it is the companions have to be universal, right? Like they're a resource for all Savage Worlds games. And whereas Pathfinder is like, no, this is for Pathfinder. It is specifically tweaked and designed for use with these adventures and these games, and all of the thought that goes through that. And it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of crossover and cross-pollination and inspiration that happens. But usually it's like, oh man, here's a thing that we would want to do, but it's not Pathfinder. So okay, that's going to go in the companion, and vice versa. It's like, oh no, this thing is wholly entirely Pathfinder and wouldn't work universally, right? Like when we talk about some of the new ancestries or whatever, it's like they wouldn't add up in a regular game. You can make it work, but like you said, they're built on 4 points, not 2, because this is Pathfinder. And here in Pathfinder, even humans get this extra boost up. So we're all still equal, but different in a different way.
Well, and I like the design challenge too. I mean, like, so this is less a criticism than just kind of a known thing. Pathfinder and D&D are infamous. I mean, all RPGs are. I mean, Savage Worlds not so much, but like when you've got
we're infamous in our own ways,
right? We have our own infamy on this. But I mean, in typical fantasy settings that do either like linear or exponential growth with the different characters in the classes, balance is very hard, right? Like maybe balance isn't wanted. Savage Worlds comes at the system with balance in mind between characters. I mean, Point by kind of does that inherently. So I think Mike had a pretty rather direct challenge on, some of the classes that are in the Advanced Player's Guide are decidedly yummy for people who want to have a little more power creep versus the original classes. And so you're keeping that balance within Savage Worlds and still keeping it interesting and attractive is, I think, an interesting challenge. And I think you've done a really good job as I've looked over these, and they're fun. So let's see. So why don't we talk about those? Like, why don't we start off with like the Advanced Players Guide? Because like everyone, we've got the Curse of the Crimson Throat as a whole adventure path, but for players, players want to pick up the APG, right? It's like they want to, convince their GM to get in. Like, can I be an Inquisitor? If a Paladin is not enough of a Boy Scout for you, a teacher's pet, would be a teacher's pet with a little more vindictiveness. Great, be an Inquisitor. But I have no harsh memories or feelings about being trumped by an Inquisitor when I was playing a Paladin. No, did not exist. Did not happen. Actually, it did. Anyway, so Michael, tell us, what about the APG? What about these 6 new classes?
So I think, as everybody has spotted on the Kickstarter page, right, we've got the Cavalier, the Witch, the Inquisitor, the Oracle, the Alchemist, and am I missing one? I think I'm missing one.
Oh, the Cavalier.
Oh, the Summoner.
Summoner. Yeah.
So they all, the Advanced Player's Guide, for anybody who hasn't really read through the Pathfinder version, it had what I feel like was a different design philosophy than the core. And what that was is to take one thing that the character would get at a level and allow it to be many things. The best example I can get for that is the Inquisitor's Judgment. So for anybody who doesn't know what the Inquisitor is, think about, you have the Paladin, who is like the holy defender and the protector. The Inquisitor is the holy hunter, who goes out and finds the heretics and insurrectionists and levels them, right? Well, he would do what was called judgment, right? And when you would take a judgment, you would pick from about 1 of 10 things that you could do. They were all like minor benefits or buffs, things that would adjust the way your character played against that particular target who you'd chosen to put your divine judgment on. And so part of the challenge is taking the variety of things that they introduced with one ability and trying to capture all of the character, all of that ability in a smaller package, make it a little bit more bite-sized, quicker to use, things like that. And so whenever we ran into that,
fast, furious, and fun.
Yeah, triple Fs, right? Whenever we run into that, we would look at a new way to go about it. And it was always interesting because, we have so many great minds here, but they all think in different ways. That like, I remember one meeting I pull in with Clint, and I'm like, all right, I want to look at these two today. At the time, I think it was the Witch and the Oracle. And I'm like, all right, so this is what I have for the Witch, and I think you're probably going to want to change things. And here's the Oracle after 7 or 8 iterations. And he's like, oh no, I love the Witch. All right, and then we spent 2 hours changing the Oracle, which at the time was like, oh no, what else needs to be changed? But there's just, there was the ways we wanted to tackle it and what worked best. And so, as much as I put into it, it was still a big team effort to make these conversions work.
Well, I love watching Shane and Clint argue over rules. It's fantastic watching they're just pure RPG genius going on back and forth over.
They are the yin and yang that forms the Savage Worlds circle. It absolutely is. They're opposites in every way, and out of the middle of that comes a game.
Right, and a fantastic game too. So we got a question from chat from Fade. Talk about the Witch. How does the Witch work? Can the character take bennies or wild die from enemy wild cards or something like that? So,
okay.
We're stealing the idea if we like it.
So the first thing to keep in mind, and this is what I want to make sure everybody's aware of, is all of the abilities and stuff are from the Advanced Player's Guide. And the reason I bring this up is there are a lot of extra variants, things that can do with Witch, extra Oracle abilities across all the books that have come out. And as much as I would have loved to make 5 pages per class edge of different things, right? This is all from the core Advanced Player's Guide. So the way the Witch works is, of course, you get your arcane background, you get your powers, you have a familiar. For those who don't know, you make this basic dark pact, and your familiar, you kind of talk to them, and it functions more like a wizard spell book. And you get hexes. In Pathfinder, the hexes are a little bit more straightforward. They are basically repetitions of different powers you can do. It could have been replicated by simply taking the new powers edge, maybe putting limitations on it, limiting the amount of times you could do it on people. They also had some other things like being able to work with cauldrons, being able to create a coven, being able to cackle. They were really.
Wait, so what does cackling do?
I'll get to cackling.
Okay.
But they were really good at controlling a battlefield in this really weird way, and they were very thematic. In one example, you could blight a land or a creature. And so at one point I played a character who was basically a snake oil salesman who would blight a farm plot, come in and be like, I'll rid the goblins out here that are doing this to you, fight some goblins, lift my hex. And, that was my background. So what we've done, though, is you've got different hexes you can take. As you advance, when you hit different rates, you can take additional hexes, grand hexes, major hexes. They're all about the hexes, right? Some of them give you unique abilities. They let you venture into the dreams of creatures, leave nightmares, force them to, suffer more fatigue. Some focus on powers, where it'll give you, as a limited free action, you can cast one of 2 different powers that you have, and that's to kind of mimic the Witch's ability to throw out extra spells. Cackle in Pathfinder, what it would do is it allow you to extend your 1-turn hexes, right? And I wanted to keep the feeling of being able to extend a detriment without having to say that a player has to take this, state they're taking an action every single turn over and over again. So while within 10 inches of a witch who is cackling, enemies do not lose distracted or vulnerable. So she has to get up in there. But if she's going mad and laughing, right, people are just staying really unnerved. And so she works really well with bards or other characters who are testing and working on other people.
Yeah. And that's one of those challenges that he's got to work with, right, is because, to keep it fast, furious, and fun, we're very much up, down, or off the table.
Yeah.
With a lot of the little things that happen. So when you've got something that's in Pathfinder, this is maybe for extending a minor effect. And then Savage Worlds were like, yeah, we don't care about minor effects.
Right?
Man.
Right? We breeze on past that. That's
right. But distracted and vulnerable, like as a thing, as a tool, people that have played enough and know like how major those can swing a battle, and literally just being like, yeah, now that we've got this status on a bad guy, witch is up there cackling, the bad guy's like, I've got to get rid of this witch. I've got to stop that cackle or
And
I'm going to be at -2 forever.
It really helps too when you run into an enemy who ends up going before you, and so they get rid of that vulnerable status, and you're like, crap, we just set this up. Now, of course, 10 inches is big, but you're still within range of like people shooting bows, throwing javelins, casting spells.
Running.
When you get to legendary, of course, we kept all the major grand hexes, the ones that are story driven. I know there's one where you can put somebody to sleep permanently, all a Sleeping Beauty. My favorite one is forced reincarnation, where if a creature fails, it dies, immediately comes back to life as a random different ancestry or creature. It's not the greatest win in combat, but it is a hilarious thing for role playing, and it's just my favorite one. So I had to make sure it got brought in.
Right now, there's some like margin notes on that one where we're like, okay, wait. Let's think of like we got to think about this one.
I think this is Michael's personal campaign to make sure Shane can't cut this out. I mean, I think that's what this is a little passive aggressive. Like if I mention it on stream, they'll demand it. And now Shane can't be like, what is going on with Michael? We didn't have a conversation. Are you okay, buddy? The meds working out? Everything good? Speaking of people who might be playing the wrong game, like Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, but actually find themselves at an RPG table, Facebook user Anonymous asks, can I have a beast summoner class? Well, yes, sir, you can. So tell us about the summoner, sir. What is that class, and who does it appeal to? Besides the awesome people who also like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon.
So the first and easy answer is anybody who wants to bring a party of their own with them, being able to bring little guys. But the big thing for this summoner is the Eidolon. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a outsider that you create this supernatural bond with, and you can bring him into this plane. And unlike the traditional summon ally, he sticks around longer. He has a personality. He is a wild card. But the part that gets really fun is you get what are called evolution points. Oh, that is fantastic. I'll see if Shane will let me add that to the chart.
I'm finally in a product. Yay, I'm in Pathfinder. It's for you.
But you get evolution points. And there is a chart very similar to what people are familiar with in the race guide for creating your own. You can take edges to get additional points. But what you're doing is you're really creating your own unique kind of alien, right? This monster, this thing that you bring around with you. And you can build it a lot of different ways, right? You can make it so it can cast spells of its own, and so it's a supporter. You can make it a beat stick. You can make it big and scary or small and cute. However you want to customize your own Eidolon, that's your choice to make. I jokingly will say it's for the player who wants to play a monster and needs to bring
I actually liked that pitch when you're like, no, really, you're playing the Eidolon and the summoner's just kind of like tagging along.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. He's your familiar. Your familiar is a gnome. You're getting to play the crazy cool bird monster. That's it.
Well, we haven't gotten a question about. So, I mean, everyone who I knew played a gnome. The second this Splat book came out, where they just decided they wanted to become arsonists and start throwing bombs around the thing. But we got some questions in chat, which I think are easy to like. I mean, these might be a no right now because I don't believe that the gunslinger is in this book. Right, that is a future Pathfinder release.
So I will break a lot of hearts right now, and I am sorry. The gunslinger and the magus are not in this book. Yeah. I assure you, they are pretty high up on like near the top of the next classes I want to convert over. There's a lot in this book, and then for anybody who doesn't realize, right, we've been on this since before the last Kickstarter ended, right? A lot goes into it. I wasn't joking when I said earlier, right? I was at 7 iterations of the Oracle when I sat down with Clint and we destroyed the one I had worked on. There's a lot that goes into it, and so
the black edit. This is notorious
all
around
felt it.
inside. It's called the black edit. And when Clint gets his hands on your rough draft, like I mean, he's the nicest dude in person.
We've all been there.
Yeah, manuscripts. He holds no stand for manuscripts.
He's like a Bond villain. It's rough.
He's holding the line. It's a hard job. Someone's got to do it.
So yeah, we don't have the gunslinger or magus. Although I have talked with, I think, Daryl and some other people about how to do the magus. So it's definitely been talked about, and I'm not saying it's not in the works, but it is not in this book.
What we talked about for the magus was really cool. So I can't wait till you guys get to see it.
Right? I mean, we should almost offer a subscription plan for Savage Pathfinder where it's just like, you guys, you give us your credit card, and every time we come up with something, we just charge it and send it to you. Like,
that's how Kickstarter works, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, and we are so happy. So, like, this is a big thank you out to the crowd. I think, actually, before we get to the Oracle question, I think it's time to do, let's go check in for posterity's sake, because I actually do refer back to these videos to see where we were on launch day. Let's see where we're at on the Kickstarter. So let's see. I got to share screen, make sure all the dirty stuff's put away. There we go. So Kickstarter, awesome. 65,899 with 563 backers. Wow. That's fantastic. Especially we launched a little late this afternoon. We had to wait for word on high to be able to push the button, and we finally got that. And so wow, yeah, that's fantastic, guys. I mean, we love seeing the backer number. I mean, that tells us that the folks who already picked up the first Pathfinder products are enjoying them. They like what they've gotten, and so yeah, that is pretty awesome. So
the backer number actually means more to us than total numbers, right? Because total numbers can fluctuate based on your product type and whatever. But the backer number is like, oh man, these are the people invested that are working on this is working for. That's what we get excited by,
right?
And this is like the day one. That's great. Yeah.
So let's see. Let's turn it on the page. So let's see. So for those of you who are new, who haven't, you're just seeing this on Facebook. You don't know what we are. So we are Savage Worlds. We are the most amazing role-playing game in the world. It's a lot of fun. Play with your friends. $40 rule book is all you need to get into Savage Worlds in general. But with Savage Pathfinder, you don't even need the Savage Worlds core rule book. The Pathfinder core rules include all you need to know to play Savage Pathfinder, which is awesome. So we already did an amazing, successful Kickstarter a year ago. We've delivered it. It is the core rules with a bunch of really fun stuff in the Ultimate Core box. And you can see all the stuff that's in like the pictures. And then that's all the stuff that's in the Ultimate Core box at the top here. And then the Rise of the Rune Lords campaign, which is Paizo's infamous, famous, awesome, storied, award-winning first adventure path. Where the goblins cause you trouble in the beginning, and then the end, you're fighting gods. So that takes you from novice to legendary. So you get the full Savage World experience and the Pathfinder experience with that adventure path. Yes, Jody says core rules all you need. Yes, see, we're good. Don't fire me, Jody. And then this Kickstarter, because the first one was such a success, it brings the next big adventure path, which is Curse of the Crimson Throne. And we'll get there in a second. We got plenty of time to talk about that. That is another awesome 6-book adventure path for lots of fantastic pre-written adventure action. And then one question we've gotten before, so I'm just going to answer this one now. We are not creating new one-sheets or material for the adventure paths. They are as original. In the deluxe release, like the hardcover deluxe release. So there's some edits that the Paizo folks did on that. So those are included. So they are the updated versions as far as Paizo is concerned. But our license was not to run around and make new adventures. So these are adventure paths in Savage Worlds versus our own kind of typical normal adventure writing, which we call plot point campaigns. So we did not make plot point campaigns. These are full adventure paths with all the text, all the detail. It's all in there for you guys. We didn't skimp anything or leave anything out. And
it is the Pathfinder experience.
It is the true Pathfinder experience.
I do want to tag on that real quick for anybody who either didn't back Rise of the Rune Lords or has questions. First thing to keep in mind is there are, of course, Savage Worlds mechanics in there, right? So there's like dramatic tasks, social conflicts. You have the chase deck. There's the use of chase deck in at least one instance in there. So there's all of the stuff that you can do in Savage World is pulled in and added to sections or events that it fit appropriately in. A lot of what you're also getting, though, is the history. So anybody who, brought up in the first Kickstarter, like all the backstory of Galarian, you have an entire region that you learned about in Rise of the Runelords. You have a new one here. And I think, more interesting is if you've played Rise and you play Curse of the Crimson Throne, you will see references and callbacks to different things that you found out about in the other campaign. So it's got stuff like that in it. So I just wanted to throw that one out there while we're talking about it.
And that's one of the fun things when you do convert, these existing adventures to something like Savage Worlds, because like dramatically and storytelling wise, we're all kind of coming from the same place, but doing it different ways. So like these subsystems, they're oftentimes like they have to go out of their way to kind of end run some of those story beats, in the original. And we're like, oh, cool, we've just got a thing for that. So we don't even have to really work that hard on it, And I love that. On the side, like converted several classic D&D adventures.
Yeah, did you do Tool of Horrors first with that?
I did, right? Yeah, like this was one of our kind of test runs, because it's like, well, look, this is all this is all coming from the same place. This is a good way to try it out. I did not have to do a lot of work, right? Like Mike did it all in the book. I just kind of picked it up and I'm like, oh, it's this, and just went with it. So it because we are all telling those kinds of stories, it just sort of works. And that's one of the really nice things about it.
Yeah, I'm super excited for more of this. And like, as people mentioned in the chat, I will throw the comments up, but like the all the BTT we are supporting for this. I think I got a video from Amy to pull up later to talk. You mentioned that, but before I grab that video, in the original Kickstarter, we included VTT assets in the pledge levels, and we decided not to do it this time, just so you can get those VTT assets earlier. It was a little difficult separating out like when we could ship physical product versus when we could generate codes for the VTT. But rest assured, the in-house team that does Foundry and Roll20 will be doing Savage Pathfinder VTT for all of it. And then of course Fantasy Grounds, which we license, but we don't create in-house. They've already released all of their 6 books for the Adventure Path and the Savage Worlds core, so you can be playing on that today. And it's another note on like the timelines for those. We churn those out as fast as we can just to make sure we maintain the quality that you guys have come to expect. So I know like the Foundry people are a little like, they're like, we don't have as many books as the Roll20 people do yet. Not because we don't love Foundry, man. We love all the systems, and Foundry is really awesome. It's just where we're putting our assets for our team. And I do believe that soon, and that is measured in weeks, not months, if not days, we'll see. I think one of the books, the first book for Rise of the Runelords for Foundry will be releasing. So you can start playing Rise of the Runelords on Foundry VTT soon. And but as long as I got the screen up, Mike, so besides the classes, which are awesome, tell us about, I think this is probably the number one question I've seen on what's going to be in this Kickstarter is tell us about the new the new like ancestries. What are the what other things than human can you play in because the APC is coming out?
You can play a half elf.
Everyone likes half elves, all the advantages, none of the disadvantages.
But not just a half elf, a half drow elf.
Yeah. So I'll talk about that in a second. The 4 new ones right now are the Asimar and the Tiefling. And an important thing to note about them, it's they count as outsiders, right? So they're not humanoids. This actually came up in a game that I ran over the weekend where the baddies had favored enemy, and it was humanoid, right? And there was the Tiefling in the party, and it was like, well, they don't get their ability against you, so that was fantastic. And then there is the Catfolk and the Dampier. Nice. And so we have those all in there to play and mix and match and use.
I like the Dampier.
Yeah, I'm playing a Dampier Inquisitor in my game right now.
You can
But
go figure it's also the one that's like got the stack of like negative abilities to go with all its positive ones. So huge shocker there. Go out into the daylight, no, but I can drink blood.
I mean, all the fun stuff, right?
Right, exactly. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to slow the party down. We're never going to be able to travel long distances because I can really only travel at night. And yeah, whatevs. Or they, you can just keep you in the cart, right? Just in a nice little coffin.
Well, and this kind of segues into one of the things that I think is really, really cool in the advanced player options that I don't think I've seen anywhere else yet, but I bet we'll see more of. And that's the alternate ancestral choices, right? So like we were just joking with the Dampier, it's like, oh, they've got, this night vision or whatever, but you go out in the day and you're taking penalties. On all of these ancestries now, there are sub options that you can pick that are like, okay, you could be Dayborn as a Dampier, and your night vision is not as strong. Like it kind of drops down to, just dark vision, I think. But you're no longer hurt by daylight because of it. And, for those keeping track of points in the background, these all still work out, right? But yeah, and if you don't want to mess with it, what I like is I like simple stuff, right? As a player and as a GM. If you don't want to mess with it, you don't, right? There's just a Dampier, here it is, here's what you do. But if you do want to customize, here's these little sub options. Okay, I'll pick sub option 1, and that replaces this ability with a slightly different one. And those options now exist across all the different ancestries. And some of them are freaking cool, right? Like a dwarf, instead of using stone cunning, like, well, I'm a different kind of dwarf, I'm going to have this rock stepper, version instead. I lose stone cunning, I gain rock stepper.
So tell us what that does.
Rock stepper is rough ground out on the outside. You get to move while ignoring it. So like for, if you're like kind of like the hillside style dwarfs instead of like deep underground ones, it's like, oh no, this is for that kind of upbringing. And like with the elves, like, oh, here's the desert elf instead of the forest elf. So they're going to bring something different to the table. Here's what you lose. Here's what you gain. It's all still a wash, but it's just those extra customization options. I love that stuff.
One of the ones I like, there is a halfling option. I think this is the only time you can get this.
This is the only thing I know of. It's a big one. Yeah.
It lets you re-roll a crit fail. Yeah, you have to trade out one of your really nice abilities, but the type of halfling, the luck you have, functions differently.
You trade out your main luck, for being able to Benny a crit fail.
But that's fantastically thematic for half folk, though. I mean,
it kind of is,
right? That makes sense. It's like the child, in regular Savage Worlds, you get the extra Benny, right? Because it's like, you're small and you're weak and you can't run as far, but we're gonna give you an extra Benny because kids can get out of stuff. So
and this one hurts me because like I'm a huge fan of the crit fail and the live with it. like I wrote an entire article. I'm like, nope, don't touch it. Leave the crit fail. You roll bad. This is great story. But this is the one case I'm like, for the halfling, that kind of makes sense. Like that's kind of cool. That's totally their shtick. Is they're just lucky. Like you feel really good when that happens.
It all comes down to, I think, the experience, right? Like we've talked about this where when we're playing, we all love that moment, I think, where we get really intense and something like bad happens. Yeah, that goes off. And then the opposite, where all of a sudden you're like, nobody's going to win. And you do this crazy thing. Like, you're like, I crit fail. And everybody's like, oh, and you're like, but I'm this halfling. So I reroll with my Benny. And it's like, yeah, we didn't die.
Yeah.
So we haven't shown, so I mean, we're reversing a little bit because we were talking about the 6 classes and we haven't shown any love to the Cavalier yet. So
that's my favorite.
Okay, so what do you like about it, man? What
So like I gravitate, in this style of game towards the warlord style character, like the kind of fighter, but the kind of leadership guy, and that's something that Savage Worlds does very well. And, like Mike was saying, with these character types, they're like all the ones in this book, they're built around, you take a base and then you've got options to choose from. And for the Cavalier, they're called orders, right? And whichever one you go for it. You've got like slightly different abilities. Like every one of them can plant a banner, and it's one of those abilities that when you first look at it, you're like, all right, yeah, I mean, that's cool. But then the more you use it, some of the like, tactical options, but when you plant the banner, you get a bonus to fear, rolls as you'd expect. But the other bonus that it does is you can re-roll running dice.
Ooh, charge.
Well, right. And that's one of those things, like it doesn't necessarily seem extraordinary. It's not sexy like on the page, but when you play it, you're like, oh my God, the tactical options that start coming out of that in terms of getting a spellcaster out of the way, getting, the barbarian in, like every time you're like, all right, I got to get up there and I roll a 1 on my freaking sprint die. Like, oh man.
Especially if you're like a cat folk or somebody who has like a higher running die, and you're like, all right, rolling my D10 to run 1.
Oh,
all right.
Bad ground, man. Sorry. But like banner, the Cavaliers got you covered, and that's cool, right? And then they're got essentially a challenge ability, right? I'm gonna pick a guy and I'm gonna mess him up, right? And depending on your order, like you can auto distract them. You can have bonuses to your fighting. You can have bonuses to tests against them. Should not be underestimated, right? Or if you're just the mean type, one of them's a -2 to casting rolls, which of course would stack with distracted and other stuff. So some poor wizard's having a miserable day. Like they've already had it bad enough because they're a wizard, but now
I like to say that the Cavalier is the Dibs character because he like pulls out a bad guy in combat. And he's like, you.
Yeah. Yep. Throw down. But that's a fun thing, right? Like you just pick that, and then I also really like, and the order gives them like one more kind of like special ability. And there's a bunch of them, but the one that I adore. Oh, it's actually one of their edges that you can buy later on, but it's a prestige edge, but like it goes with them really well. It's the one where if you get dropped, you get to make a free attack.
Ooh.
Ignoring your wound penalties.
Like ground fighter.
Well, but here's the great thing. No, not when I'm saying dropped, I mean incapacitated, right? You took 4 wounds, you're down and out, this fight is over. As you go down, take a free attack, ignore the wound penalties, and it's treated as if you've got a joker.
Ooh.
That's so much fun on a billion ways, right? Because one, like, oh yeah, I'm going down, but I'm probably going to take this guy with me, right? Because I've got all these things coming. And like the subtle interactions there with Unstoppable and Mighty Blow, because a lot of people don't take Mighty Blow because they're afraid they'll never get a joker when they need it. Well, you need it now and you got it. So bam, you're doing double damage on this hit. And likewise, Unstoppable, you only take 1 wound unless the attack's on a joker, which this is. So it's like that Unstoppable guy that could otherwise plow the team. Like you went down, but you took him with you. That's fun. Like I enjoy that kind of interaction and play.
That sounds super awesome. So I got a question from Dinkelberg68. Mike, will there be alternative edges for the base classes just like with the ancestries?
Okay, so I know what he's talking about. Right now, let me say no. Currently, there is not. And I looked over this a lot. What they did when they made the Advanced Player's Guide, so people know, is they would take the hyper-focused options you could have for something like a fighter, and now you would be specifically a crossbowman. And so your level abilities would be more specific towards that. There are some that I saw that kind of worked and some that didn't. Whereas I would say, well, in this case, you would just take trademark weapon. And so it didn't quite work out. Now, that's not to say it won't happen in the future, and there won't be something built around it. But for this book at the moment, we don't have the variance there. If you're looking to go crossbowmen or some of the other ones for like rangers, like Urban Ranger, thing like that, just use some of the massive amounts of edges you have available in the Pathfinder core book, the Advanced Player's Guide. If you have the Fantasy Companion, you can do a lot of mimicry off stuff from there. So that's not specifically in this book right now.
Cool. Next question from Jason Sunday. Are there new prestige edges?
Yeah, the thing I was talking about was actually part of one of them.
Yeah. One of my favorite prestige edge trees. I think it's the Hospitaller or Hospital, something like that. Oh no, the Holy Vindicator. You get Stigmata, and the first one you get, you start, bleeding for a few rounds, and you're a little bit better at healing, and that's okay. But then when you take the next edge, while your Stigmata is running, you get to add your spirit die to damage, and you get to count your spirit for the kind of weapon you can use. And then finally, with your last one, your Stigmata kind of erupts in this aura that functions like damage field. But much to the detriment of undead, you stop the hardy ability for any creatures within your aura. And so, it'll work on things other than undead, but that's one of the things a lot of undead have in common is they're hardy. And so, you go from having the Stigmata that's kind of cool and thematic to having, this character who applies this epic aura as he channels his god's power through him.
That's cool. I love that. I mean, you can tell like in the original adventure, like there's definitely people probably see this only from Monty Python, with like no one expects the Spanish Inquisition with like the little red hats that the Inquisitors used to wear, whatever. But yeah, the art for Pathfinder definitely went there with the same kind of thing. But I love they bring Stigmata into the game. That's really cool. So speaking of like religious mysticism, tell us about the Harrow deck and like what that does in the game and how people use that.
Okay, so the Harrow deck is something that was specifically introduced in Curse of the Crimson Throne. Anybody who played Rise of the Rune Lords knows there is a unique mechanic. I'm not going to talk about it because some people are playing it right now. But there's a little extra thing in there that the GM can track, and it develops as the campaign goes along. This is not a real spoiler for the Curse of the Crimson Throne because it happens right away. It's a big part of it. But the Harrow deck is introduced as a way to tell this story, to give you a foreshadowing, a foretelling, that kind of thing as the book goes on. And depending on how the Harrow plays out, different things will buff your character or buff the party. They'll happen. Again, don't want to get into spoilers. But one of my favorite things about the book is every book, every chapter, however you want to break it down, your character is guaranteed to come upon an event that they're basically destined to be this big player in. And so the Harrow deck helps play a part of that. And so that, especially if anybody's like a more meek role player, maybe they like playing support, but they stay back a little bit. They have a little bit harder time being loud like me. I can be a very loud player. You're guaranteed that there's going to be a point where your character gets to have the spotlight on them. And there's like this little extra benefit again. So that is one thing that Paizo does that I love when you get into their campaigns. There's always like this extra little thing that is unique. You're not going to use it for every game you ever play all the time. If you want to introduce it to a game, you have the mechanic on the side, but it's cool. And also the Harrow deck just looks awesome. And, if you want to play a Harrower from the companion, you have a cool little prop to go with you. So yeah, it's a nifty little deck. It looks awesome and provides extra cool mechanics.
And it just oozes style.
Yeah.
Right? Like you want to get like put into the story when you start flipping, you doing your reading, like, oh, it's this, like, all right, man, boy, it puts you in there. That's what's cool about it, I think.
Yeah, someone asked a question I'm searching back for, but they basically asked about where the Harrow deck is in the pictures and in levels. So it is not sold separately. It is not an add-on. It is only available in the box. So you got to buy the box. The box is where that's at. And that's because, we don't directly compete with Paizo with products that are not system specific, and the cards technically aren't system specific. I mean, our rules for them are, but the actual card decks are not. So we can give you those in the box, and otherwise you can't do them as add-ons. So you got to get the box. So a good reason to pick up the box if you want to pick up our version of those Harrow cards. And then likewise, We're not producing the pawns. Paizo's producing the pawns for these. You can do those as an add-on, and those are the exact same pawns that Paizo has. Oh, there's Hannibal. Hannibal's saying hi. Hannibal's a big dog now. I should bring him over here. Compared to like the last Kickstarter when he was like much smaller. But so yeah, when you guys get the Paizo pawns, those are directly from Paizo. I mean, we're gonna put them in the box with you when you get physical goods. So you can do those in the add-ons just for convenience sake. But those are not our pawns. Our pawns actually are very cool. We do little die cut things around them. Anyways, their bread pawns are cool too. So let's see. Any other questions?
I actually think the original Pathfinder pawns were one of the things that got us on track.
Oh, totally.
That we're doing.
Totally.
Like, this is cool and useful, and we can kind of push this technology a little bit.
Well, and they made the right choice, right? If you think about it, when they do an adventure path, they pack so many monsters, so many locations in, that if you are a consummate miniature painter, it'll take you as long to paint all the miniatures you would need as it would to run the campaign. And like, God bless the people who put that kind of time in. But those pawns are a great way of being able to give your characters, like, full color, easy to use at the table. They're immersive. And
as you know, anyone who runs a lot can tell you, just having something to represent numbers and general positions, even if you're not zooming in on tactical combat, just having something that answers those basic questions like, wait, is that guy next to you? Is he over here? There's 5 of them? Oh my God. Just having something to represent that makes all the difference between a fight popping and being confusing.
Yeah. Right. And here's the thing. So like, Savage Worlds does not require you to use bennies or to use maps. It can be done in theater of the mind. Sometimes people are like, oh, if you want to do all the subsystems at the same time, don't. It is really pick and choose what works for you. That's in the beginning of the book. Shane has a really good little section where it says these rules are here to help you. You don't have to use all of them. It is, but so people don't realize that it's an important paragraph. But I like, even when we're not doing, like, if you look back on our YouTube history, we did a chase deck in the first Pathfinder campaign. I love the chase deck. It's my favorite new mechanic. But we use the miniature pawns, the Paizo pawns, just as record keeping. So, when you're keeping track of the chase, how many bennies this character has, or right. So even though that it's not technically the 3D map and the right hex, just being able to have those and to be able to put the up, down, off the table, or the wound tokens or whatever next to those bennies is fantastic. And they come with the archetypes too, so that's a good thing. And someone did ask how we're doing the archetypes. I'll try to go back and find that one. But so, Mike, how are we doing the archetypes in Savage Pathfinder?
So you're going to find them very similar in this one to the one we did in the first Kickstarter. You're going to have the iconics. We're going to have in the book, the progression path, and on the cards, I think we're going to have the novice and seasoned. So you'll be able to use them, reference them, however you want to use them. And then we are going to once again have another set of archetype cards in which we use the existing edges that we have in the book, and we make different versions, kind of showing off how you can build your own, customize your own, or if you're showing up at a convention like Gen Con or something like that, you can just slap the card down. I ran Pathfinder in Deadwood, right? I ran a few games of that, and it was very easy, hand to stack around. People grab one they wanted. When I played, I just grabbed the one-armed swordsman that we made and played that one. So they're very good for that purpose.
As a lazy GM, I love when other people do work for me. The more of that's done that I don't have to do is spectacular.
Well, and that's the best part of it the number one hardest thing in role-playing games is getting everybody to pick a one night a month to get together and show up, right? That's the hard thing. I mean, by having these box sets where it's like, boom, open up, everything you need to run is there. The maps are there, the pawns are there. I mean, it's so much of a catalyst to actually playing more. Yeah. So that's my favorite part about it. It's like, yes, I will gladly give you pawn money to not have to paint 45 miniatures. And yes, like, these maps are fantastic. So that's my favorite thing. So since I get to ask questions now, I want to talk about the new crunch that's going to be in the Crimson Throne campaign, because the curse part of that is actually, there's legit curses going around. So like, Mike, what you start us off with, like, tell us about like the curses, the diseases, the poisons, that kind of stuff that we're going to find in the Curse of the Crimson Throne campaign.
Okay, so there will be, for anybody who backed the Fantasy Companion, there is a little bit of a nod that you're going to see here, where there's going to be new effects, like debilitating poisons and things like that. I wish we had a spoiler alert. I'm not going to give too much info, but for anybody who's like, earmuffs.
Here we go. Wait a second. I got to make a banner.
You make an earmuffs banner?
Yeah,
they're here. Spoil it.
The whole campaign, the inciting incident is the death of the king, and it's through this twisted poison that acts as a disease. And a lot of the campaign focuses on these different uses of subtle methods of murder. And so like there's also reference to an addictive drug that's rampant in the city that starts off in the very first book. So if you're looking to pick something new for your character with the habit hindrance, there's something for you right there. So there's new info, a few new specific diseases and poison, things like that. And it's tied in pretty tightly to the story and big aspects in it. Some are harder to detect than others, and some are harder to cure, making it prolific. There's a point where Corvosa undergoes a pretty serious disease, maybe something we've seen similar in the past couple of years.
We have no experience with this. None at all.
So there's going to be more on that. Nothing that's way too hard. A GM can easily follow it, play with it, introduce it. Characters can run with it. And it's also still maintaining a simple enough line that, in a general basis, if you just have like rats with disease, you can just use the standard disease or poison from the book. So there's extra little things to make it pop, but it's not like it's creating a whole new system to use it.
Fantastic. So here's a question from the audience. I'm going to add a little addendum too. Are there any new magic armor and weapon effects? Also, intelligent items. Tell us about those three things.
No, I cut them all out of the book.
God damn!
Nobody likes a magic
What
item.
intelligent items?
Come on.
My favorite part.
So, it's not about the gear, it's about the man.
You must start this campaign naked without possession.
I love magic items. Yeah. So there's a new set of enchantments for creating your own weapons and armor. You've got those. You've also got new iconic armor, weapons, wands, rods, staves, wondrous items. More importantly, you have new minor artifacts, new major artifacts. You have cursed items, which are my favorite because I'm a horrible, horrible person. And then, we've got at the back a section about intelligent items. So this is referenced in a minimum of one, if not multiple campaigns for Pathfinder, in which at least one bad guy has an intelligent item, or you can find an intelligent item. They are interesting. They're not always good. If you come across an intelligent item that's evil and has this evil purpose, it may try to dominate your character if you pick it up. Whereas you might be able to find one of your own that's good and helps on your path. And there's the rules for making it if the GM wants to customize his own for his campaign, or if he's willing to let his party member make their own. But yeah, plenty of magic items.
Yeah, and they're not as flashy as the magic items, but I like some of the minor alchemy potions. And what I especially like is that you don't need an edge to make them. If you've got the alchemy skill, you can just try and brew stuff. And it might explode in your face and be terrible, but I like that. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, talk about the alchemy and the brewing.
So it's pretty straightforward, but we've introduced a whole other page of alchemy items. Anybody who has the core book, there's already like the Alchemist Fire, the Acid, things like that. But we've got a whole new selection here. You can use your alchemy skill to craft them. They can be thrown. They can be used to apply different effects to your weapons even. If you're the alchemist, if you're the alchemist, there's a discovery that you can do where you get to craft even faster, so you don't have to spend downtime getting things plugged out. You can on the fly kind of throw them together and just be this crazy bombardier. And I'm getting shown up by a dog. It's a little hurtful, but I get it.
I know. I'm sorry. Had to be done.
It did.
No, I just have passive aggressive flashbacks of a little like light PTSD of the goblin alchemist in the campaign I was playing in, who he went from being like okay character to like just destroying everything. The second he got the bombs, it was just like napalm. There was no dungeon survived, no enemy could Yes, alchemy. It's very upsetting, man. It is. So yeah, that's my thing.
One thing I want to talk about, and this kind of spreads across both books in theme. We talk about all this destruction and bombs and challenges and all that. There's also a couple magic items and a couple edges that are built more towards subduing, right? Whether it's making it so your enemies can't attack or they become more passive. And if you want to play a dude who walks around murdering people, first of all, more power to you. Have fun. And these aren't going to be edges for you, right? Like somebody isn't nearly as effective as just taking him out forever. But what it does is there's, players or groups who, want to play either bounty hunters or somebody who's trying to cherish life or has a vow where they can't kill. And these let you focus on that. And the reason I bring this up, minor spoiler alert, one of the things I love in Curse of the Crimson Throne is there is more than one bad guy who, as a player, you don't know everything about them, and some can be redeemed, right, if you don't just kill them. And that, changes the story dramatically. And as a GM, I've had bad guys who I've on the fly, character decided they loved too much. I ran a campaign where I made a bad guy that was too entertaining and the entire party started working for him, so I had to convert him. But the thing that I like is when they put it in there, you see like the motivations behind it. And when the characters put in the effort, they can say, hey, I get something out of this, right? Like, right. I chose not to kill you. I have redeemed you. You're somebody I can come back to. And, as fun as combat is, and, we all love, encounters and taking things out. I think like with any RPG, any video game, anything like that, part of the thing that draws us in is the connections to the other characters in there to help tell a story. And so being able to do that, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah. And just mechanically providing the option, like, is the wake-up call that this is an option. Like, this is a thing that you can do, that you could always do, you just didn't know it, right? Like, that's always, it's a good hint, for the possibilities that are out there.
Yeah. And combat, this is something to people who are also just playing in fantasy companion games. We talked about this in one of our meetups. If you're playing normally like Deadlands or something like that, one thing that you're going to have to get used to is some of the rules that you don't normally pay as much attention to, right? If you're running Deadlands, you're shooting from the hips with your, t-shirt and a 6-shooter, and you're hitting target number 4 and you got toughness 5.
You're right. That comes against you too. Like, oh, I don't have armor. Too bad that guy hit me with a rifle.
So not only in Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, but in fantasy, you're going to see a lot of different things, right? You're going to see the paladin who's got like a fighting D10. He's got a medium shield, right? He's got trademark weapon and block, and he walks up into your face, and you're like, oh, how do I hit him ever, right? And then you got to start looking and going, okay, well, we get an extra guy in here for gang up. Oh, dang, I can wild attack. I forgot about that.
Somebody needs to test this guy, make him vulnerable, please.
Right. So not just in Pathfinder, but in fantasy in general, because you're dealing with a lot more sword and board, right, and building magical armor, you're going to see guys that are harder to hit or hurt, and you're going to be harder to hit and hurt, which is why I always suggest to GMs, right, when you have the bennies, use it to go after the players, right, so you can be scary rather than using it to soak every hit. That way your players get to be scary and you don't run into a longer drag out fight. But you'll want to keep an eye on these kinds of things as you're sitting down. One of my players used desperate attack, and so some people looked at desperate attacks where you can take away from the damage, add to the accuracy. And what he did is he went ahead and did smite on his weapon, got a raise, so he was at +4 damage. Looked at his enemy and went, all right, I'm going to desperate attack for 4, right? So he was still rolling his average, but he ended up not only hitting, he got a raise, so he was banking on the exploding die there. And when the enemy was harder to hit, it allowed him to get that extra oomph to tag him. So there's a lot of things to pay attention in that will make combat be more dynamic as you get into different fantasy fights.
It's a system that rewards understanding a few of your options. You can also just swing like mad and eventually you're gonna ace. Like it's gonna happen eventually, but if you want to save time,
is that why you like Unstoppable Barbarian, sir?
I kind of do. Just swing. I don't want to think. I just want to swing. Whatever. This is going to sort itself out pretty soon.
Yeah, we've got new legendary edges. Some of you may have seen slight variants or versions of them in the fantasy campaign because we all thought I was brilliant. We took some of them from the and converted them over. So you'll see some differences, but like barbarians have unstoppable, fighters have veteran of the endless wars. There's home ground, things that when you do hit legendary in these campaigns or in your own, you get to be legendary.
Yeah, right. Because just the way Savage World scales, it's you don't feel quite as different from level 1 to level 20. Like that difference between novice and legendary until those legendary edges start kicking in, and you're like, okay, wait, I've got a whole second character, or D12 plus 2 or something, or whatever, or unstoppable. Where it's like, yeah, great, hit me, let's bring it right here.
Yeah. So how does Unstoppable Barbarian work?
So when you are raging,
you got to rage.
You got to rage because you're a barbarian. That's what you do, homie. When you rage, you just simply gain the unstoppable trait. So unless your opponent's got a joker, when they swing at you, they could do 60, damage, and you're gonna go, I'm not gonna bother making a soak roll. I take a wound. And you laugh in their face because it's awesome, and you get to feel like this iconic barbarian. And we've got legendary edges for like all the new. I think we have it for everybody, if not very close to everybody.
You do.
There's ones for the summoner, for the witch.
Talk about Stalwart Defender.
I already did. That was Stalwart Defender is the one where like there's 3 levels, like all the class edges or whatever, but the middle one's the one where you go down and get to swing back with the thing.
Oh, so that's the last word.
That's the last word, right?
God.
And that's your answer to that Unstoppable Barbarian. Like, okay, I'm taking you with me, buddy. So let's do this.
See a object if you see a unstoppable force. Yes, we're doing this.
Oh. The legendary one for fighter is your enemies gain no benefit for wild attacking you.
Yeah, that's huge.
So if you build this fighter tank, you can go into it, right? And I was playing Solomon Kane a little while ago, and all the bad guys decided to wild attack, right? And as mooks, they were doing like D6, but when you're doing D6 plus 2,
oh yeah,
they just laid into us, right? We almost lost, the entire party of that.
Like little zombies should be doing too. It's like, yeah, they don't have that great a hit number, but they're wild attacking because zombie don't care.
Yeah, GMs, if you're wondering how to deal with players who are kind of spiking their parry really high, don't forget wild attack and gang up. They matter. Let your zombie die quickly. Who cares?
Right. That's what they're for.
Yeah, they're all building into iconic, legendary capabilities that these archetypes have. And so they're really awesome.
Oh, the other great one was Mythic Slayer.
Oh, talk.
Yeah. So we were just talking about Unstoppable and Jokers and all that. Mythic Slayer whole thing is like, oh, I'm a dragon slayer. If I'm fighting a dragon, any face card counts as a Joker for, Unstoppable and crashing through it.
Fun.
Awesome.
So do those give bennies to everybody else at the table as if they were drawn, or
no?
No. It just cancels.
Cool.
It just cancels Unstoppable.
And I like the thing is that Daryl pointed out earlier, for some of these, I know a lot of players will look at some of the edges and go, "How often do I get a Joker?" And so they have a hard time like taking Mighty Blow and things like that. But if you still are building your character towards these things, right? Stalwart Defender and Mythic Slayer, right? You suddenly go, no, I'm going to start triggering these effects a lot more often.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go, from, once every like 20 games to like once per game, I take out some dude like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And so, you have that capability.
I love it. So in honor of Hannibal showing up on stream, are there any more bestiary beasts and any that the evil GMs would be particularly fond of? And if as long as you're answering that, why don't you talk about animal handling as well?
Okay. So in the advanced player's guide, there aren't any new monsters, unless you count the Eidolon, which I think you should. But if you are playing through Curse of the Crimson Throne, or if you're just using it as a book for bad guys and monsters, there are not only plenty of awesome, iconic baddies, but there is at least one creature from outer space that is in the Guide to Corvosa, but you can't actually fight him in the campaign, because if you would, you would like lose. He's like a terrifying entity of insane proportions. But there's a lot of really cool iconic beasties, different demons or angels, things like that haven't made it yet into the bestiary, that are in there. Some have different, slightly altered iconic abilities because they're advanced versions. But if you're looking for monsters, and you're, especially if you're already picking up Curse of the Crimson Throne, you're going to see a lot of stuff in there that you can use to scare your party members.
So my guess is the answer to this one's going to be a no, because that's what you guys pay us for, and we pay Mike for. It says, are there going to be guidelines for creating class edges so they balance with the published classes?
No, I got no better answer than no on that one. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Just the reminder that what Savage Pathfinder is an adaptation of existing Pathfinder. So,
the one thing I will say to you, and because everybody's going to house rule things or create their own things, right? That's great. You'll run into versions that fail you. Don't think that your one and done will work, because I cannot tell you how many notes I have seen in a book in which Shane has said, "So does this mean I can do this?" And I'm like, no.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
Right? I mean, I think that's my observation.
We've all done it back to Shane too. This is how we roll as game designers. Like, cool. So
here we go.
I can do this. No, stop it.
There's a reason that a year plus went into these, right? It's really not a quick one and done. This looks cool, because you will come up with something that's either insanely overpowered or something that seemed cool that just never comes up. And it's art and it's science, right? It's a mixture.
Yeah, and there is. I mean, there's no way that we could ever provide you with how to convert this on your own, because I mean, there's just so much real playtesting. Not the I read through the manuscript briefly playtesting, like legit rolling dice, seeing how it works, replaying the scenario with different assumptions going into it, seeing how the new rules affect whatever. As you got into this, that's kind of what it takes. It takes the dream of a single game master out there being able to do the conversion. I mean, Mike's amazing, but again, it's a huge team effort with people like Daryl and Shane and Clint and everybody else, Simon and Jody, breaking it and then to fixing it and making sure that it runs smoothly and fun and it's epic and it feels like Savage Worlds. And so that's why we're selling it. So you can just buy it.
And that also has to do too with scaling, right? Like the more tables that you're on, the more likely you're going to get someone doing something that different. You're going to get that guy that found the way to break it. You know, if you're just adapting it for 5 people, you're probably going to be okay.
I have a buddy of mine who's playing a druid in Savage Pathfinder, and he's using Entangle, as one might.
Entangle's nasty, man.
He's newer.
These are known.
We've had some talks about this in rules discussions, but he would throw on all these power modifiers, and you could hit this point where the thing to clarify here is this is getting called out later. It's not doable, but normally you can't fatigue anything unless it's a resisted power or it is a damaging power, right? Then you can throw the fatigue modifier on it. Well, Entangle isn't resisted and it doesn't do damage unless you put the damage modifier on it. And so you can then, when somebody's already distracted, you then fatigue them. So they're at an additional penalty with that trying to break out, which again, it normally couldn't. Right, but you threw on this modifier and it changed the power, and so we just find different things, and that's not even just in Savage Pathfinder, right? If you're playing base Swade, right, you can throw on the strong modifier in round 1 of trying to break free. Your opponent's at a -5 to break free of being bound, right? I've got PTSD with Entangle. No, but playing all of these games and doing play tests allow us to see these various effects that come up that we didn't see before.
So much of that is situational, though, in terms of it's like, oh yeah, if you're in a dungeon, which, hey, what do you know? Pathfinder, a lot of stuff exists in a dungeon where everything's all packed in close together. This is a bigger deal than an outside game where it's like, yeah, we're spread out. And it's like, yeah, those 3 guys really got hosed, but there's a rest of an army that's about to, abuse you for it. Like it works in different ways,
And in the previous adventure path, Rise of the Rune Lords is a very overland path where you start under a city and you're making your way out across into the mountains. And this one is kind of in and around Corvosa. Not to say that it's small in scope. Corvosa is a huge city. Like the map is key.
Yeah. So Corvosa is huge, and your exploration of it is huge. There is another location that you can visit that is a very hardcore dungeon crawl. It's got a lot of really cool and spooky mechanics in it. For anybody who's worried, at the back of it, there's also a section on how to make it run faster if you're not a fan of that kind of dungeon crawl. But it is very different in the way it plays. And one of the things I love about it are the fact that humans can be scary. We're all used to seeing these terrifying monsters, and the women in super armor here, the Gray Maidens, they're scary. One of the new edges in the Advanced Player's Guide says whenever you take the defend action, if you have a shield, you can apply the shield and cover benefits to your friends near you. And so when you have these Gray Maidens who are in these heavy armor, tower shields, and they start moving up, and the first one does this like bulwark maneuver, and you've got her friends firing arrows and they're just pushing into you, you stop looking at them as random people that you're fighting, and you're suddenly looking at this terrifying like military force where these 4 or 5 women are just going to level the party. And so follow the rules.
Entangle them.
Right. You should entangle. So, we just talked about power modifiers, which are fun. One that I know we haven't listed, we should talk about lock and unlock.
Well, it's not a modifier. That's a new power, and that's one of the things that's so hard that Mike gets to deal with. And like we all get this, like in some products, like, ooh, it's time to add a new power, right? But it's hard to add a new power just because powers, by their nature, are very applicable to different situations. They cover a lot of ground, and you've really got to earn that space because, like, a starting character only gets 3, and you're like, why would I take this versus bolt or boost lower trait? Something that's going to be universally practical and applicable. And so, like, some new powers like kind of fight their way into that. Like, no, this is cool and this is needed. And like what Mike did with one of these new powers, and there's a couple of them, but the one I really like is lock unlock. So just like boost lower trait, both effects are together, and it covers knock, opening doors and things like that, but also like hold portal. And these are both effects that people are gonna use, and it's a utility power for sure, but it's a dang useful utility power. So I dig it.
I'm all for you adding armor piercing to unlock. Yeah,
designer approved, Robin.
We've got that. For anybody who has played high level Pathfinder, I'm not going to get too into the weeds on what it is, but we have Magic Jar, which deals with you taking the souls out of a creature and making them susceptible to possession and other things. And then we have Create Pit. And so take a moment to talk about
Hannibal has this power. He can just dig a hole.
Right.
So,
and the design conversation around this, first, like when you don't know anything about it, you're like, all right, we've actually already got a power that does this. We don't need another power. However, when you dig into the actual effects, it's like, oh, mechanically, this is way different from what we're talking about. It does need to be its own thing.
Right. So yeah, if you have elemental manipulation, right, you can spend rounds digging holes and
I can make a pit. Anyone can do
that.
Right.
That's fine. In Pathfinder, and I mean in a lot of settings that have extraplanar like realities, they tend to start using them and calling on them in different ways. And so Create Pit does just that, where even in a dungeon where there's a floor below you, you create this extra dimensional space, and immediately this pit appears. And what I love the most about this power is it can do damage if things fall in it. It's crowd control, right? So you can manipulate the battlefield. And then there's a power modifier to make the ground at the bottom soft, which, at first you're like, well, if I'm making a pit for somebody, why do I need it to be soft ground? But then you run into those scenarios where it's like you're out in the open, you're crossing this plane, you need to hide. How are you going to possibly do it? And the wizard's just like, all right, everybody, huddle together. We're going for it. You just drop down. And so anybody, looking out in the open, it's like, all right, nobody's there.
In the Return of the Tomb of Horrors, Mike, he varied wildly in build between sorcerer and druid. He had burrowing, and that saved the party's life at least once, probably twice, right? So like, yeah, the applicability of stuff like that is huge. And there are other, like, what's interesting too is there are other new spell effects, but they take the form of new modifiers to existing powers. So you don't have to buy a new power necessarily. You're like, look, here's an effect that can be done depending on your trappings or whatever. Check the guide.
You see, fantastic stuff. So one question, easy to answer, Jason. There are no stretch goals. So with this campaign, we did a booster, and so we put in all the goodness is already baked in, and we did stretch goals for the first campaign to kind of make some items that we're on the fence about, and we love those, and all those are great, and those are made. So and speaking of those items, if you guys have not gotten in on Savage Pathfinder yet, while we've been on the stream. Not only have we raised a dozen more backers and a couple thousand more dollars, but Donald and Jody and Christine on the back end are like, hey, why don't we throw a sale on the website for Rise of the Rune Lord stuff if you haven't gotten in there yet? So I do believe they're working on that now. So within a day or two on our website, I think we're going to probably throw we'll take 10% off the whole kit and caboodle if you want to get in on Rise of the Rune Lords. And start playing it now because it's shipping. It is shipping. It is in our warehouse. If you want it at your retailer and they don't have it, have your friendly local game store send an email to info@peginc.com on how to get into our new retail program. We've got a program for retailers that distribution is sometimes hit or miss with our products. So we will do direct to your retailer, and we'll give them the 50% off, MSRP and free shipping and no order minimums. So if you want to order through your retailer, just to be a nice person and go and support them, they can order you anything to their store, and there's no penalty to them, free shipping, no order minimums, and the expected retailer discount. So info@peginc.com, spread the word. We'd love to get more retailers involved in our direct program. But it looks like we're going to do a 10% off thing too. So I will, there will be news on that hopefully tomorrow on our socials if you want to get in on that.
So
and
let me chime in with two things real quick. First, and this is a public service announcement, if you or a friend has not filled out their survey for that first Kickstarter,
that's true.
If you forgot whatever it is, please reach out to the Peg Inc. Support team.
So
you can get your stuff, right? Get your stuff. We worked on it. We love it. We think you'll love it. Don't let money go to waste. And two, it's not technically a stretch goal, but the favorite thing that I pushed for that got added in are the metal conviction.
Oh, yeah.
I love those. That's my favorite thing that's in here now. So,
and those are going to be metal, not like plastic. The image right now is a little shiny, but we're going to get that updated when we get some production proofs or something similar to some photos. So don't worry, they're not plastic. They're actually metal.
I was about to say something really dumb, like metal's hard, because like on the production side, getting metal items like into boxes is difficult. But then I'm like, metal is hard. I'm like, duh.
Maybe a spoiler: if you plan to play Curse of the Crimson Throne, you wouldn't feel sad if you invested in extra conviction.
Okay, that's not too bad of a spoiler.
No. But that was my favorite thing that got added in there.
Yeah, those come in groups of 5. So if you want to pick up more for your table, you can totally be a cool GM and get that done.
If you want to put it in a bag and hit a bad player with the bag, I don't promote that.
Player abuse. Oh, I love it. So let's just check out on the Kickstarter and where we're at before we wrap it up, as we've already gone well over an hour. So thank you for joining us, folks. We will do more of these as the Kickstarter campaign goes on. I think we're going to do a 3-week campaign. So we will be back next week with some live streaming and fun on there. And we are currently sitting at $68,499, and even more importantly, almost 600 backers at $591. Thank you for that. That is the bestest ever. Oh, and then as long as we're here, let's go over the backer levels, the actual pledge levels. So if you are a player and you want to get in on that advanced player's guide so you can have an Inquisitor instead of just a winky little paladin.
Splat books are so cool.
Right? Splat books are cool, people. They're awesome. Just $15 for Player Digital, and that comes with the APG and then both of the archetypes set 3 and 4 in PDF, so you can build your character easily. So the archetypes are great starting point if you want to build your own character as well. That's why we love them. And then if you want to go back and pick up archetype set 1 and 2, wait for the sale on Kickstarter on peginc.com tomorrow. You'll get 10% off on those. If you want to get an imprint, you can just fork over $30, really cheap for a book. And you'll get the APG, and then you'll get the archetype set 3 and 4 in print. And we already talked about how amazing those are in print. We love them. They're really cool. The art's great. They're super useful. And then for Game Masters, if you want to do the digital, it's $100, and that comes with the APG and PDF, the archetype set 3, archetype set 4, all 6 of the Curse of the Crimson Throne books, the Guide to Corvosa, which has some really great information in it and some fun new rules, the Crimson Throne handouts for immersion and deliciousness, the Curse of the Crimson Throne poster map, which you're going to want because Corvosa is a big city and a lot's going on in there, and that poster map is going to come in key. The Harrow deck in PDF, the Ally and Adversary cards set 2. People really love those from the first Kickstarter, and we are currently shipping out or soon. It's on the way to the warehouse, I think. So we've expedited getting those stateside, so you guys can get those in print because those were a really awesome stretch goal from the first campaign. And then the advanced power cards, because as Mike said, there's more fun power stuff, and those actually, some of those cards will be multiple cards per power, but because there's just so much going on with powers. Like in the first set, like Wish definitely took up more than one card because there's a whole lot of info to give you with Wish. So those are super handy for you guys. And then where we really love you guys is if you get stuff in print, because paper is just nice. I mean, opening a book, cracking the spine a little bit, smelling the wonderful ink, all that good stuff, and those sexy ribbons. The GM print is all of the above in print. So it's the APG, the archetypes, the box set. So you actually get a box for the box set for the Crimson Throne, and also those conviction tokens in print. So those are fun. And then if you missed out and you're fine waiting, you can become a Pathfinder, and this is all the things. And there's currently 5 of you out there, so thank you for you 5, because I think dinner is on you tonight. Because for $450, you get all of the stuff from the first campaign and all the stuff from the second campaign, pretty much all the things, and which will allow you to be the coolest game master on the block for all the Savage Pathfinder stuff. And so
That's
those
also like a ridiculous amount of stuff.
It's
a lot.
There's guaranteed it's going to come in multiple boxes, because I think just each campaign is going to be about as much as you want to safely lift with your legs, not your back. I always get that one wrong, and that's why my back is crap. So that's where we're at. Oh, wait, 69, 194, and 2 more backers. So look at this. We could just say hurrah, and like 2 more backers show up. This is fantastic. I love it. You guys have been great. So yeah, we will do more of these. Oh, and now there's 11 comments. I thought you guys were out of comments. Okay, so we're going to really quickly, let's see, anything else we need to ask? Let's see. Oh, Buenos Aires, welcome back to the stream. Is the Guide to Corvosa also included in the GM tier awards?
The Guide to Corvosa is in any thing you back that has Curse of the Crimson Throne.
Yes. So that's
GMT would include it, yes.
Easy. Yes, Donald is like, show the graphics. Yes, we did. Yes.
Put in all that work.
Hopefully Don took a nap at some point today.
Yes. So, I mean, we don't make excuses here, Peg, but there's just been a lot going on these last couple of months with folks. So we are so happy that you guys are healthy and happy and in a place to back. And if you're not, because we understand, get the digital, and you can always get the books later. And then let's see, any other good questions you've got? Let's see, everything GMT. Oh, Donald answered the question. Let's see. There we go. Awesome. Hello. And then, yes. Okay, good. So we covered those comments. Not as many as I thought there would be. So yeah, we will be back with more content. So then otherwise, outside of this Kickstarter, at the end of this month, maybe the beginning of the next, depending on when our hosts have some free time. They just got back from getting married, and then one of their grandparents died. So talk about, so we're not going to pressure them to get this started, but we are going to do a Savage Summer Showcase. And so we're going to be streaming once a week on this channel, twitch.tv/Peg Inc. And we're going to be showing you off all the Savage Worlds adjacent creators. So not Peg stuff, but all of the aces who are our licensed creators who do books, our swag members. They're the people they publish on Drive-Thru RPG through our swag license, and then media network folks. So anyone who does YouTube videos, podcasts, Twitch, Twitter, all that stuff. So we're hopefully going to have a mix of all of the people who aren't Peg, but who love Savage Worlds and create stuff for you. We'll be showcasing their creations throughout the summer. So keep an eye out on that. Thank you, Feargrounds, for having found a Savage World product that hasn't been amazing. But yeah, we're really excited about this Kickstarter. Michael has done an amazing job. Don has done a spectacular job getting the page all perfect and set up and all the smoothness. And he's now answering all your questions. Geez, there's already 31 comments in the Kickstarter. There is I see some Kickstarters. They make like $1 million and there's like 14 comments. And it's like, we were at like $200 and there were 15 comments already. It's like, you guys are ravenous and we appreciate it. But so yeah, we appreciate all the things you guys have done for us. This campaign is going amazingly so far. It is already funded. It's going to happen. And we're just about to break 70,000 on the first day, which is a pretty good for one day's work. And we know Mike's been working for the better part of 2 years on this. But...
Yeah, right. It's not as good for 2 years worth of work, Mike, but we'll take it.
So yeah, guys, with that, Amy filmed a wonderful video with us. Not going to show it. We're kind of out of time. But anyways, on the Amy video, the brief points are there will be virtual tabletop for all of this. It's not going to be in the campaign. It's going to come out separately as our team has time. And almost all of, like, a bunch of it is already out for Roll20 and for Foundry. The core is out for Foundry, and then the adventure paths are coming. I think Roll20 is up through book 4 on the Rise of the Rune Lords adventure path, and then Fantasy Grounds has up through book 6. So if you want to play digitally, grab those assets. They're on our website, peginc.com. Otherwise, join our newsletter for the news, and as we tell you everything you need to know on Tuesdays. Scott does a wonderful job with those, and otherwise we will see you guys tonight. Tonight is the final night over on the Saving Throw show. Go watch Saving Throw tonight. It's the final episode of their Learn to Play Savage Worlds, and I think they're going to get into some fun combat and crunchy stuff, so support them tonight as well. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with more live streaming. And that's it. Thanks again, Daryl and Michael, and congratulations, everybody.
Bye, guys.